This is another episode of Hate to See It. Thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time, we appreciate it. I am Sid. He is Mike. We are excited. Another episode. What's good, Mike?
I'm down the shore. It seems life is back to normal. We had a beautiful weekend this weekend. It's been high 70s, blue skies. People are out and about, which is good because last weekend, Memorial Day weekend, was just a washout. It just rained all weekend. So this just feels like the official start to summer.
Good. I am glad to hear it. I'm also doing well. I went to my first Mets game in a long time. They're playing my Slam Diego Padres. First time at Petco Park. Awesome place. It took me like 15 minutes to get there.
That's awesome.
Literally just one road all the way down. Super easy. I left super easily. No problems. Like I was home so quick. Like it was just such an easy experience. And I got to bring you guys here when you come visit me. But Mike, I was watching our last episode, right?
Yeah.
And you told me that you posted it and you asked me to take a look. I was busy doing something, but I took a look and I noticed right away that you've inputted our new music. So we had the new intro. And also I noticed you changed up the intro, which is looking good. And then with this episode, I haven't seen it because I haven't seen this episode yet, but you also made another update to our intro. It looks really good. Great stuff. Like I'm excited for our viewers to check it out today. Give us their thoughts. I know. Go ahead.
They'll already have seen it because it's been edited, so it'll be at the front of this episode. Let us know what you think. I don't have any video editing skills whatsoever, so it actually took me a considerable amount of time and effort to do this. It was a huge pain in the ass. I don't have any really sophisticated editing software or anything. I was just using standard software like iMovie that comes with Macs. I'm on a Mac, and honestly, like trimming these clips, I took like a 2.5 second clip from almost every episode that you and I have recorded, put them back to back, and I kind of timed it so it goes nicely with Steve's music. And just getting those 2.5 second clips, just cutting them, it just was such a cumbersome process. It was such a pain, but it was worth it. I think it's good.
No, you did great. And for people that don't notice, you do like almost all the editing. So great job. You've been kicking ass. I know at some point our intro will change, but it looks great right now, especially the music. We have a new song, new outro as well. We're going to talk about that a lot this episode. But you know what? No more copyright claims.
Yes.
Like that's a big deal. We like the music we had before, but we don't want those claims. We want this to be our content. Like we want to start profiting out of these episodes one day. I think that's the plan. We'll see where this goes. But for people who haven't seen our show before, thanks for joining. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you think. Generally Mike and I talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about. That's the point of this podcast. But if you guys want us to talk about something specifically, just make a comment below. But Mike, this is exciting. I'm ready to start. But this episode is going to be it's a perfect episode because of what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to have the creator join us in a few seconds, who is our good friend. We went to college with him. So he took this on. He created a song for us, both the intro and outro. And as soon as he joins, we'll talk more about that. But I'm loving both. Like when I was driving home from work, I played it on my car speakers. It sounded great.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I've played it on my big screen TV, out of my nice stereo system. and it sounds great. And we'll talk to Steve about this once he hops on. But one thing I noticed is, and you don't necessarily notice this if you're just playing the song out of a phone or like a tablet or something like that. So try it out on a TV with some good speakers, because there's a cool effect where he's using stereo sound, where the first few beats of the song come out of the left speaker, then the second comes out of the right speaker. And I maybe he can talk a little bit about how he got that effect. It sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for him to tell us more about that. Also, really quick shout out. I had two gentlemen who were working in my apartment last week. They were helping me out. They, this didn't come. Hey, there he is.
There he is.
What's up, gents?
What's up? What's up? Thanks for joining. Just really quick, let me finish this quick story. But I wanted to just thank those gentlemen for, taking care of my apartment last week. And then they noticed my mic. And they're like, "Oh, you sound like a cool guy. What do? You have like a podcast?" And I said, "Yeah, me and my boy, we have a podcast." They've subscribed. Thank you for subscribing. But let's get into it. Steve, is he our third guest? Fourth guest? Fifth guest?
I think fourth guest, possibly.
I know you've had Johnny Mac.
Yep.
Yes.
Gail. You had the Rev. So at least three.
Yeah, so you would be
at
the
least
fourth.
three. But that's not to
Welcome,
take away.
Steve.
Yeah, welcome. That's not to take away from you. There's no.
I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to come on and discuss the Jaws sequels and their importance and cultural impact. I've made extensive notes.
Oh, awesome.
I'm ready to dive in whenever.
I really want to go into the merits of the third and fourth Jaws movies, and which is better.
3 is the worst one.
But you know what? That's well played, Steve. But that's actually a good idea. One day, Mike, for an episode. I know we did a movie episode, which was our last episode. But maybe one day we pick a specific movie that came out years ago and we do a review. We talk about it. We talk about how things have changed since that movie's come out. But I think that could be a good episode in the future.
Yeah, I think we should do something James Bond related when we get close to the release of No Time to Die. Yeah,
that 100%. But even other movies, because James Bond will definitely tackle. But I know Steve is well versed in a lot of the not current movies, but some of the older classics.
Yeah, some you could call classics, some you could call classics.
Some of like the older action movies, right? Like 70s, 80s, 90s action movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, those are good movies.
Yeah, exactly.
So Steve, before we talk about you, we talk about why we welcomed you onto the show, we want to do our segment, which we've never done with a guest before. So we haven't told you about this, but we're going to do our You Love and You Hate to See It segment. And you're going to join. You're going to be part of that segment. Mike, kick it off.
Okay. I was watching a movie last night on Netflix with Jake Gyllenhaal and Emma Watson called Rust Hold. Have you heard of this movie?
Say it again. Rust what?
Rust Hold.
Oh, I heard of the title, but I haven't seen it.
So it's basically takes place in the late 1800s. It's about the race to who can be the first to invent a flying machine or like an airplane. And it's historical drama. It's not a true story. It's fiction. And these two, Jake Gyllenhaal and Emma Watson, are like a married couple, and they create this flying machine. And if you've ever been to like a Smithsonian or like any kind of museum about the history of flight, you've seen some of these like proto planes like that are just very strange looking. And this was like one of those kind of strange looking contraptions. Like people thought you had to like actually have wings that like flap like a bird. So they build one of these things and they like fly it off a cliff, and it's just a disaster. And in the wreckage, Emma Watson somehow survives, and Jake Gyllenhaal, his body is just missing. And that's just kind of like the setup of the movie. I don't want to spoil it. Like that all happens within like the first 15 minutes, but I would recommend it. Does that movie like pique your interest? Does that plot like pique your interest at all or not at all?
So you're asking if we hate to see it, do we love to see it?
Yeah.
I'll go first. I mean, sounds like an interesting premise. I think for the most part, I like both actors. I think there's an age gap, right, between the two?
Like 15, I think like 15 years maybe, yeah.
Does that come off in the movie or not really?
No.
But no, the premise sounds interesting. And this is a real movie, right? You're not bullshitting us.
It's a real movie.
Yeah, I guess you like to see it. I'll definitely check it out. I'm always up for a new movie. What about you, Steve?
I love to see it. It sounds like a pretty cool concept. They're both good actors. Historical dramas, if it's well done, could be a good thing. But this sounds like there's a little element of mystery or thriller in it. Where we don't
Yeah, there is. There's some turns that it takes in that direction for sure.
Now, was he trying to avoid Emma Watson and he just wanted a new life? Was he having an affair? So he purposely crashes his plane, but last second jumps out. Who knows? My interest is peaked.
Well, it's too bad because Elson, you were right. It is a fake movie.
Oh, really? Oh, you son of a bitch.
I dreamed it last night. I had this vivid dream last night of this movie. Like exactly as I just described it to you. It was such a vivid dream. It was so vivid that when I woke up, I just had to Google the name of the movie in my phone. It's like, this has to be real. And if you Google Rust Hole, just nothing really comes up. It's totally fake. Do you ever have, and this is like the real topic. Do you ever have like dreams like that? Like where it's like, you're not even like, usually when I dream, I think when most people dream, like you're in the dream. Like this dream, I was not in the dream at all. It was just it was a movie that my brain invented with this like very intricate plot with these famous actors. It like sounds like it could be a movie. Although Elson, you were clued in a little bit. You seem to think that maybe this wasn't real.
Because I know you like to start these segments with a joke or something, so I was a little cautious. But you sold it well. But speaking of that, and I think Steve will mention this, Steve's a musician, and I know he's dreamt about songs that he eventually creates. And I know when him and I traveled, and we're going to talk about this during this podcast, he woke up one morning and I saw him like playing riffs on his guitar because he had an idea in his head from a dream.
Yeah, it's true. So it doesn't really count as a dream, but the intro music to your show came about. I was lying in bed. I had just woken up. And the first few notes, that first riff you hear in your intro, I heard while I was lying in bed. And I was like, I'm going to have to get up and figure this out, because if I don't, that's the thing with music. If you have it in your head and you don't go play it, you don't record it, whistle it, sing it into a phone, anything where it's captured, even if you remember the exact notes, you might not remember accents or rhythm, and it's gone. So I thought of that in my sleep pretty much. It's happened other times, a couple things where I came up with some like crazy harmony. I was like, oh my God, I need to get up and, figure this out on guitar. But yeah, sometimes it's weird. Music comes to you in your sleep. There's a Billy Idol song, Flesh for Fantasy, one time that I figured out while I was dreaming somehow. I got up and played on guitar. I was like, oh, wow, okay, I got that right.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And I know, Mike, this happened in your lake house, where I had a dream after skiing and drinking all day, where it was basically a story that movie that I created, not created, but wrote. And hopefully one day, it's with Gary Busey. Hopefully one day I can actually make it, but that came from a dream as well.
Yeah, and actually, Steve, after you delivered the intro music to us, we kind of sat on it for a while. Like, you did this several weeks ago for us, and part of the reason was, like, as I was explaining before you joined us, like, I just don't really have video editing skills. I didn't know how I was gonna do the intro. I knew I wanted to redo the intro. I think it turned out really well. But
Steve hasn't seen it, the new one.
Oh, okay. Well, you will see it. I just lost my train of thought. No, but yeah, I actually figured it out how I would do it in a dream while I was sleeping. And it wasn't like complicated or anything, but it is kind of interesting how you can get inspiration while you're sleeping.
Our brains are very powerful. I'll say that.
The subconscious is just very interesting to begin with. And sleep is where we take a lot of what we learned in the day and it gets encoded into memory. So there's a lot going on when you sleep. Sometimes poring over something constantly while you're awake will just burn you out. And, if you just rest a little bit, that's how your mind takes care of some of the things that you need to do.
Very
that's probably where the expression sleep on it comes from, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mike, that was your segment, I assume, right? That was
good.
Yeah. Cool. I'm gonna pull up my notes. I don't want to butcher this, but here's my thing. So 1 second. So Mayor Blasio, right? That's his name. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Mayor de Blasio. This is from a few weeks ago. So a lot has changed since he said it, but it's still appropriate. I want to talk about it. And I don't know if you guys like him or not, but that's besides the point. So he was doing these silly press conferences recently to support the Knicks and Nets, like wearing the jerseys and whatnot and hats. But he said it's been a very challenging year and a half for all of us. Now I feel like it's a time for us to celebrate. It is a good time. Both the Brooklyn Nets and New York Knicks have made the playoffs, and it's been a long time since both teams have made the playoffs together. I'm hoping our city can unite and that we can root for each other and cheer each other on. I don't want there to be feud. Now, obviously, if they play each other, that's a different story. But I think it's important for us to support both teams as they embark on this journey. And I wish them well. One thing that I also want to do to extend the celebration, and I'm going to announce this for July 1st, no, July 11th. I want to do a celebration of New York, specifically about Brooklyn being on Long Island. Now, as many people may know or may not know, Brooklyn is on Long Island. It is considered Long Island. So I want to celebrate that. Now, Steve, do you love or do you hate to see it?
So I think that you are you're springboarding off what Mike does every episode and starting with something that sounds kind of real and then going in your own direction. It's a joke. If it's part of Brooklyn being Long Island, I hate to see it. But as an expatriate, I don't care anymore because I'm a proud Jersey resident now.
Oh, yes. Good answer.
That's right. That is a good answer, but that's not my real question. I really wanted to just pick on you because we've feuded many times that Brooklyn is on Long Island and whatever it is. But I just wanted to start off with that. Thank you.
Brooklyn absolutely is on Long Island.
Yep.
But it's not considered part of Long Island.
Right.
Part of New York City. It's just like Alaska is attached to Canada, but it's not part of Canada. It's part of the United States.
I think that's a little different. I don't know if that's a right analogy.
But either way, that was a joke. But the real question.
It is an analogy. It might not be the right one. But,
okay, fair enough.
My real question, another appropriate one for Steve being on this week. Well, not this week. Yeah, it is this weekend. But tonight, big fight. Floyd Money Mayweather is coming back. He's fighting YouTube sensation. Is it Jake or Logan Paul? I forget their freaking name. So one of the Paul brothers.
I think it's Jake.
It's one of them, either Jake or Logan. I think whoever it is, he's fighting them. Now the question is, as a boxing fan, and I know Steve's a huge fan, and Mike, I think you've definitely watched some boxing matches in your time. But do you guys love to see it or do you hate to see it? Who wants to go first?
You could take the floor, Mike.
Okay, I mean, I hate to see it. I think it's a gimmick fight. I mean, I don't know why Mayweather is like tarnishing his reputation and his career by participating in this. I mean, I know why he's doing it. He's doing it for the money, but it's like I think it's a disgrace. Like this Paul kid has no business being in the ring. I mean, really, he could get killed. What do you think, Steve?
I agree. I hate to see it.
Yeah.
The only way that I would agree with it happening is if it attracts some interest to boxing, for a casual fan or someone who has no awareness, but because it's a cultural event, because it's a guy who was on YouTube who's now fighting, one of the pound for pound greatest of all time. If it could bring attention to boxing and help bring it to the forefront again, I think it's great. But I think it's just, I don't agree with it. I agree with you, Mike, that it's a disgrace to the sport. It's making a farce out of it. There have been exhibitions in the past, like Muhammad Ali fought Lyle Alzado.
Yeah.
In
the McGregor fight more recently.
Right. And it's a total, this just feels like a cash grab. And again, that just brings further disgrace to the sport. I think that Floyd was an amazing fighter. I rooted for him from his De La Hoya fight onward. But he's a very frustrating and polarizing character in the sport.
Yeah.
And I don't really think that, his fights generate a lot of money. He gets a lot of attention. I don't feel that he's really furthered boxing's reputation in a positive way, though. Based on his opponent selection and when he fought them in their careers, etc. It's this is like a distraction. There should have been a big fight with Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua that didn't happen. Now Fury's fighting Deontay Wilder again.
Yep.
We should be focusing on real fights like that instead of these farces. If you want to focus on the farces, what Mike Tyson is doing is fun. That's accepted. It's an exhibition. You don't really know what's going on, but you get to see these legends kind of come back and fight each other. It's something that you never thought you would have seen. And at least again, that's like, people get to see that and maybe they'll watch a real fight. But for Mayweather to fight a guy from YouTube who has, no real professional fights, he stands to profit majorly. But I mean, anybody could get caught. Floyd is 40 something years old. If he gets caught out of position and he gets, let's say, knocked out, especially because he's giving up something like 35 or 40 pounds weight.
He is.
It's a tremendous difference. Anybody could get lucky and land a shot. And if Floyd gets knocked out, then it delegitimizes boxing in a crazy way.
Again, that's true.
He's one of the greatest fighters of all time. And then it's like, Joe Blow could come in and fight and, knock somebody out. It's just, I don't like it.
I love, you guys don't like it. I love to see it because a lot is changing in this environment. YouTube, social media, it's bringing our attention to more people, right? A lot of times, if Jake had the proper training and privilege to be a boxer, he could have been a good boxer. You never know that, but he was never given that opportunity till now. A lot of these athletes were given a specific opportunity because they had the skill and they succeeded. But I'm sure there's some people out there that could be good boxers. They just weren't given, they didn't have money to get the support, the training. But if they were given that, they could have had that opportunity. I think a lot of these TikTokers and YouTubers are showing that there are people out there that may be talented. And I know Paul takes it seriously. Like he's been training, I think, over a year now in Puerto Rico or something like that. Like he's actually training. He's not just going to go in there and just fight him. So he's putting in the time. Like he obviously wants to win. And again, it's a cash grab. I do get it. But like Steve was saying, this is going to bring some casual viewers who are big fans of Paul to the boxing sport. And unfortunately, boxing has suffered recently. They don't do a good job of selling people to watch your sport. And that upsets me. And if we can get more viewers to the sport, that's great. Obviously, you would like to do that with a marquee matchup. But there's a lot of, casual fans who may not know those boxers. They may not know the Anthony's of the world and Mayweather's and whatnot. I mean, obviously, you should know Mayweather, but they may not know everyone else. But Paul will bring some people to the sport. Hopefully, it's not a complete farce. Hopefully, there's some excitement. Steve mentioned the big difference. Like, generally, you're not going to have a boxing fight with a big difference like that, like a height and weight difference. It's not going to happen. But, I want to see it. And again, like even like recently, like Steve just mentioned it was supposed to be Tyson versus Joshua, right? That was supposed to be the big
Fury and Joshua,
Fury and Joshua. They were supposed to fight. And we've been waiting such a long time. The boxing screwed that up. Now we have the third Wilder fight, which is still going to be a good fight. But like boxing does stuff like that like upsets fans. Like we've been already waiting for the other fight for such a long time. It may never happen now. But you know what? I really hope it draws some viewership to boxing. Hopefully it's not a complete joke, but I love to see it. As long as people can watch a sport and we can get boxing on the track, I'm all for it.
You know what the best? Sorry, Steve. Go ahead.
So if I may, what bothers me the most about it is, especially because it's boxing, you have men and women who have tons of amateur fights, eke out like. The main draws make a lot of money in boxing, the people at the very top. But you have people who are eking out fights, fighting every few months, getting beaten up. Like they're putting their lives on the line every time they get in the ring. And you have very sound fighters who would, anybody, like any of them pretty much would knock out somebody like Paul because he's just starting out. I'm not questioning his dedication to training. I'm questioning that he only got into it within the past, year or a few years. And you have people who like come from horrible backgrounds and like this is their ticket out. They'll never be on the same stage that Paul is going to be on just because he had some social media following. It's like he has, it's a loaded word, but he has the privilege of being. He's a self-made celebrity. Credit to him that he was able to, achieve whatever status he has the way that he did. But he's going and fighting, one of the greatest fighters of all time, which people who are fighting like all the time trying to make a living out of it they'll never get the opportunity, and they're far more deserving. That's one of the things that bothers me most about it.
That's a good point. My God, I wanted to add something to that, or do you want to go with your point?
Well, I was just reminded of what I think is potentially the best exhibition boxing match of all time, Balboa versus Drago.
A classic.
Yeah.
But one thing,
if this fight ends communism, I mean, I'm all, and I love to see it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What I like about UFC is they give opportunity to a lot of those fighters. I feel like, because they have their matches are quicker, and you're able to see someone who can get that knockout and become popular. Boxing, unfortunately, does not support those guys who have been training for a long time, and UFC does. Like, you can have an instant star from any moment. I hope like boxing takes some approaches similar to UFC. But either way, we talked about it. We did our segment. Thank you, Steve, for being our first guest to join that segment.
Thanks.
But let's go right into our topic, which is music, which is appropriate because Steve, again, created our intro, created our outro. Talk about it, Steve. Talk about the process, and thanks so much.
So, writing the music for the show, I was trying to capture the spirit of the music that you had before. So, what was that? That was Kevin Owens' theme song from Wrestling. Yeah, and it kind of falls into that like new metal sound. So I was trying to come up with something that would capture that same spirit, but not be a copycat. So again, like I said earlier, I had just woken up and I had this idea for a riff in my head, the dun 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 dun. So I heard that, I was like, all right. And I actually, even before I stood up and got a guitar, I just pulled my phone and I pulled up GarageBand. And there was a little keyboard on there, so I'm hitting the notes like, okay, I got it. I was like, all right, let me get up and figure this out. So I figured it out, just took a quick video of myself playing it, then went and picked up a guitar later and tried to flesh things out. I was like, all right, so what part's going to come next? Had some riffs flying around, and it all came together fairly quickly. And then, the recording process, fairly simple. So the intro came first, and then discussing with you guys what you wanted for outro music. I know you said you were thinking of maybe kind of an electronic version, something pared down of the intro.
Yeah.
So again, took the music and then, it was a lot of programming. So music like that don't really need to play a lot. It's a lot of just programming in what I use is Logic Pro X. Again, just basically took the chord progression and said, all right, how can I make this sound a little more electronic? And I remember I submitted a version to you guys and you said, actually, we want something bigger because I had pared it down too much.
Well, we gave you some conflicting instructions, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So then I came up with this other version, and I made it sound a little video gamey because I think that was something that you were looking for. And it all came together pretty quickly. It was just the outro took a little longer just because I was having trouble getting some of the sounds. But I mean, the surprise for some of the viewers, if you don't pick up on it, is that the outro is really the same music as the intro. It's just rearranged. The chord progression is the same. The structure's a little bit different, but it's just it's the kind of a Nintendo-ized version of the intro.
Yeah, I think both versions are great. We're really happy with it. One thing I was talking about before you joined us, Steve, is one thing I didn't notice at first because I had been listening on a phone, is that you use stereo sound for the intro, where it starts coming out of the left speaker and then comes out of the right speaker. I think that's a cool effect.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it gives that kind of like almost like you're not really sure what's coming. You hear on one side, it's almost like if you're walking outside and you hear a noise, it's like, what's that, and then everything comes at you at once.
Yep.
It's really neat. You did an excellent job. Where can our viewers find you?
So I'm on Instagram at Steve Cast String Theory. That's the best place to find me right now. I don't have a Facebook. I try to stay off social media generally, but I use Instagram to post some of my music, just some random videos. I play some battles with my friend at J Goes to 11. We'll play guitar solos over the same chord progression, and we'll ask the viewers and the listeners who played it best. So Instagram would be the best place to find me or contact me.
Yeah, check him out. He's really talented. I've seen Steve live with his band. I don't know if you're still in that band, or maybe it wasn't a band. It was maybe you were joining another band. I forget exactly what it was, but you're really talented, Steve.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mike, have you seen him live?
I don't know if I've seen you live in person, but we saw you play. You did that online concert that we all saw.
Yeah, I think you watched a few of the live streams I did when I was with Back from Zero.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen you play guitar live, but just like not as part of a band.
Not on stage in front of an audience.
Yeah.
Are you still with Back to Zero? Is it done or moved on?
No, I left them when I moved from Brooklyn to New Jersey. I stayed for a little bit. You know, they're a great bunch of guys, great songs. It's just I'm not I'm geographically is a little bit hard. You know, it's kind of expensive going back and forth between Jersey and Brooklyn, and I'm just not in a place right now where I can fully devote myself to being in a band. You know, like I don't really have the free time. You know, wanted to save up some money. You know, I just got engaged last year. I wouldn't have been.
Congrats.
Thank you. You know, I wouldn't be. It's because if you want to be in a band and if you're playing original music and trying to make it to whatever extent you're trying to make it, it's a hustle. You need to dedicate time and money to building up your brand. So you know, I played bass and did backing and co-lead vocals in Back from Zero. And you know, I would be doing a disservice to them if I were, you know, only putting forth as much effort as I was able to or had time for. But you know, they're soldiering on. I know they have a show booked in July 29th at Arlene's Grocery. So, you know,
nice.
Great guys. I wish them well.
Yeah, check them out, fans. Back to Zero, but also check
back from Zero.
Back from 2-0. Back from Zero, but check him out. Definitely check out Steve. Check out his Instagram. Like, it's so neat, Mike. We have our own music, intro, outro, and that's just another element that we're going to keep adding. We're going to change the intro again one day, but as we grow, things are going to change about our show, and I'm excited to see where this journey goes. Now let's talk about this topic. Again, it is music centric because Steve is a musician. That's the topic of the day. So if we want to talk about music in general, like what we're listening to today, talk about our concert experiences, talk about whatever the hell we want. But just, I guess to start it off, what are you guys listening to today? Any specific albums or anything?
Oh man, I don't listen to a lot of new music. I have my playlist. I'm still listening to like a lot of stuff that I've been listening to for decades. Like I'm listening to like the Clash records and I like the Killers a lot. I listen to the Killers a lot. I'm still listening to a lot of 90s grunge music. You know, if you have recommendations for me, I'd love to find some new bands to get into, but it's getting tougher these days because just I think musical tastes have changed so much. I mean, like 10, 15 years ago, there was like a huge indie rock revival, which I don't think it's what it was, around when we were in college. It's just like, I don't know. It seems kind of like rock is dead.
I don't know about that. I don't know if it's dead. Maybe you're just not exposed to it as you were back then. But obviously, there's definitely differences from then to now. But what about you, Steve?
So I wouldn't say rock is dead. Do you have Sirius XM? Do you listen to?
I do, yeah. I
do.
listen to like the Spectrum and Alt Nation, which I used to like Alt Nation a lot. I think it's garbage now.
Oh, so I was actually going to say it's a pretty good station. I
love Alt Nation.
Yeah,
okay. All right.
Because it's not something I ever really listened to before. Like I wasn't anti-alternative, just I wasn't really. And it's funny because what passed for alternative, like over the past 30 or 40 years, has totally changed.
I think it's kind of like a catch-all term. It was always kind of a vague term.
It is, but that's a solid station. So actually, like,
it is.
Taylor is the one who put me on to that.
Oh, okay. I should take it back because there are songs on there that I do like, but I just like Sid, like you and I used to go on road trips and we would just have Alt Nation on.
Oh yeah.
for hours at a time. It's like every song was good. I don't feel it's like that anymore. I feel like it's like more hit or miss. They play like a lot of Billie Eilish now on there, and I'm not a Billie Eilish fan. What?
This is not particularly me either.
Yeah, so it's like that's kind of what I just it's becoming more mainstream, more pop oriented. I think more like certainly more electronic.
Yeah, I don't mind that though. I like a well-written pop song, no matter what it sounds like.
Yeah, same here. What about you, Steve? Any new music you're listening to? Anything specific you're listening to right now? Like right now?
So I can't say anything new specifically, but again, like listening to Sirius Radio, listen to the Alt Nation channel, but also First Wave is good. That's like say like 80s alternative. So discovered bands. Not that I've been listening to them heavily, but like Susie and the Banshees, Echo and the Bunnymen.
Oh yeah,
they play some. They had some cool stuff that I just never really listened to before. But I mean, you guys know, at least from when we first met, that I was a total metalhead. So
yes,
I'm all over the place musically, and kind of like Mike, I listen to stuff that I've listened to for forever. Like I'll still listen to Megadeth, Pantera, Metallica, Slayer, but then I'll follow it up. I'll listen to the Spice Girls, or I'll listen to Paul Simon, or Bruce Springsteen has always been my favorite. Sly and the Family Stone. Like I'm all over the map, and like Mike said, how about road tripping, you and I also took a road trip, and music was a big part of that.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about that this episode.
Able to expose each other to different forms of music, which was great. It was eye-opening and ear-opening for both of us.
It was. So just talk about what I'm listening to right now. 21 Pilots, which is probably one of my favorite bands right now. They just released a new album, Scaled and Icy. It's less dark than their previous albums, but it's really good, more upbeat. I think Mike likes 21 Pilots. I don't know if you've been exposed to them, Steve, maybe through Alt Nation, because they're on there.
Yeah, I've heard their new song on Alt Nation.
But it's a good album.
I think I heard their new one too, and I liked it. I've heard a few songs by them, and they've been kind of hit or miss, because like not really my thing, but yeah, some good stuff.
Yeah, it's a 2-man band, but good album. I'm excited. I didn't even realize they were recording a new album. It just seems like the last album just came out, but that was like 2 years ago. But either way, it's a good album. If you guys, not you guys, but our fans watching, definitely check it out. But one thing I saw on Twitter today, which is appropriate to what Mike was mentioning, maybe Steve was mentioning, but you're over 30 when now you clean your house to music you used to get drunk to. And it's true. Like, it's sad, but it's true. Like I do it all the time when I clean my house. I listen to music that we used to party to in college. Do you guys agree with that tweet?
That's like spot on.
Pumping stuff from your basement parties, right?
Yeah, exactly. But no, I thought that was appropriate. I literally just saw that tweet a few minutes before our show.
But you just jogged my memory, Sid, when you mentioned 21 Pilots. Another band that I've liked for a long time has a new album coming out. It's been getting some play on Alt Nation actually. Modest Mouse. I forget the name of the song that they've been playing, but it's good. You like Modest Mouse, right? Modest Mouse, right?
I do. I definitely do. Steve, do you?
I only know a couple songs, but they're good.
Like Float On is the one that was popular.
But it's funny. Right before our cruise in college, I downloaded illegally a Modest Mouse album, their new album. It was something about a ship sinking. I forget the exact title. I forget what it's called. Yeah. But I was like, literally, I'm down this song for a cruise that we're going on. Hopefully, our ship does not sink. Luckily, it did not sink.
Right.
But Mike, I don't know if. Go ahead.
The perfect timing on that.
Exactly.
That's like when I go to the beach, it makes me want to watch Jaws. It's just one of those things.
You love to see it. Yeah. But Mike, did you have any not questions, but plan for this podcast, this episode, or should I just keep going? Was there anything you wanted to bring up?
Well, I kind of wanted to talk about like our exposure to music. Like, what did we like first listen to when we were younger? Like, what got us into music? Like that kind of discussion. Is that something that you were interested in talking about, Sid?
Yeah, we can start with that. Definitely. I definitely want to talk about concerts as well, concert experiences. But let's start with what you wanted to talk about. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I could just kind of kick us off. Like growing up, like listening to music, I've always liked music. I played music. I took piano lessons for years. I was in the band in high school, playing percussion, and I was in the marching band. I played bass drum in the marching band, and so I've always had an interest in music. But in terms of like my musical taste, like what kind of music I liked, it really didn't evolve much until maybe late high school or even like early college. Like prior to that, I didn't really I knew what I liked, but I was listening to like a lot of stuff on the radio. I remember in the 90s, like I would listen to like Z100. I was listening to like top 40 music, but at that time it was very different. You had a lot of the pop punk stuff. It wasn't all, quote unquote pop music. So yeah, like bands like Blink 182 I liked a lot. um Even at that point I still hadn't gotten into grunge yet. I didn't get into grunge until college, way after grunge was over. I liked bands like Green Day. That was kind of like what I listened to when I was younger. And I remember, like, do you remember recording songs off the radio onto cassette tapes? Did you ever do that?
For sure.
Yeah, so that's what I would do. I would listen to the radio, wait for my favorite songs to come on and record them, and I'd make mixtapes. And then in college, I had a roommate freshman year who was like obsessed with Pearl Jam, and I just, through osmosis, I became a Pearl Jam fan, and I still like them a lot.
Guitar Mike.
Yeah, Guitar Mike. I still listen to Pearl Jam all the time. And another roommate I had, who you two know well, was a big Dave Matthews fan, and I took his music. Yep, I took his music in through osmosis as well. I would not consider myself like a huge Dave fan by any means. I have never seen him in concert. I would love to see Dave Matthews Band in concert. I think that would be a great time.
Brian Hadley's a huge Dave Matthews fan as well.
Yeah, so like I'm not like a huge fan of them. I like many of their songs, but it's not like it is with Pearl Jam, where I am like legitimately like a huge fan. I'll listen to their albums just like first track to last track. Like that's kind of like, for me, like a good indicator if you're really into a band. If you can just listen to every track on their album, and you like every song, like that's a good band. Like there's not too many bands that can do that. Steve, we'll throw it to you, because I know, as you mentioned, you're like a big metal fan. Was metal what like really got you into music, or was it something else?
Yeah, so I grew up when I was younger, like we all do. I'm talking about really young, listening to what our parents listened to. And my funny thing is that throughout life, no matter how my tastes have changed, we're not talking about high school. I just wanted to hear heavy, hard stuff, but I still like and appreciate whatever it was I was exposed to growing up. So I come from a major Bruce Springsteen family. Listened to a lot of Bruce growing up. Always loved him. Always been my favorite, no matter what. I have always been devoted there. But
Me too.
Yeah, because he's great.
The boss.
But heard a lot of Hall and Oates,
Mm-hmm.
The Police, Squeeze. Then it's like some soul stuff. And then like heard the Kenny G and Michael Bolton, and that stuff I'm not really into, but still kind of nostalgic. But as I got a little bit older, like once I was in middle school, you're kind of trying to find your way, like trying to find out who you are. And like musically, I really didn't know what I wanted to listen to, but I knew it wasn't what was on the radio so much. I mentioned the Spice Girls earlier, I liked them. But other than that, like at some point I was looking for something a little bit harder, and I just didn't know where to start. Like I liked Green Day because Dookie was huge.
Yeah.
95 or so, grew up, it blew up enormous. So I was like that. But then after a while, I didn't really have anything to listen to. And I wanted to find something a little bit harder. And it's funny, I had gotten a Weird Al CD, and on one of them, it had a parody of Nirvana. It had a parody of Smells Like Teen Spirit called Smells Like Nirvana. And I remember hearing, the guitar part, and it's like, okay, this is something that piqued my interest. I wanted to hear something a little harder. And like, it's hard for someone who's a bit younger than us to imagine not having access to music, not being able to listen to whatever you want to whenever you want to. So when we were growing up, we didn't have, this was pre-Napster, we didn't have YouTube, internet music wasn't a thing. So you were stuck with whatever they had at your local. We had Nobody Beats the Wiz. We had a place called Record
Yep.
Factory, Sam Goody, FYE a little bit later. You're subject to what they had there and how much it cost. Like I know a little later on, I wanted to buy Korn's first album for a long time and couldn't find it for less than $20 anywhere. And I was like, I'm not paying that for a CD. So I finally, I was like, okay, I want to listen to some harder music. And I remember Guns N' Roses being big when we were really young. And I remember my mom making me sit down with her one day when I was like 6 years old, saying, watch this video, this November Rain video. It's great. So I remember watching that. It always stuck in my head. So I wanted to seek out finding some Guns N' Roses music, and couldn't really find a lot of their albums out because they weren't really in vogue at the time. That wasn't the kind of music that was popular. They had been on hiatus. So I ended up, going to different stores, and I found one of their albums wasn't the one I was looking for. Found another, same thing. Then I found another. I was like, oh, this is the one that has November Rain on it. So I listened to that one a lot and liked some of the tracks, didn't really love others, but it was closer to what I was looking for. And then I finally found Appetite for Destruction at a store. I remember I found it was like Link holding up the treasure in Zelda. It was like I found it, and I came home. It's exactly what it felt like. I came home, popped it in, and from the first notes of Welcome to the Jungle, up until I think I listened to the entire album, and I was like, this is it. Like, this is what I'm into. I need to find more stuff like this. So I listened to them obsessively. I think it was the summer. I was either going into 8th grade or going into freshman year. And then I just found more and more bands, that were harder bands. So like one of my good friends, Kevin, introduced me to Pantera. And I think they were more than had bargained for at the time. But then, after a few weeks or a month or whatever, it was like, okay, I like this too. And my process was always, find a band and then find who influenced them and see if I like that. And then find who influenced them. And then I keep going backward until I found something like, okay, this doesn't really resonate anymore. But, through doing that, got into Metallica and Megadeth, and then Black Sabbath I got hugely into.
That's a good approach. I like that.
Yeah, because then you reach a point where it's like, all right, this I can appreciate it, but I don't love it. Like, so I went Black Sabbath, I just mentioned, Blue Cheer and Vanilla Fudge are two of their big influences. I have an album by each of them. I don't love it, but I appreciate it. But they kind of hit that point. I was like, all right, I'll stop here and look elsewhere. So yeah, into a lot of metal, but then my tastes really expanded a lot. I grew up in Brooklyn, so there was a lot of dance,
which is on Long Island.
Which is on Long Island. Like 103.5 KTU played like all dance music. I have playlists of that. I listen to disco. I got majorly into jazz after college. So I listened to a lot of stuff. And then when it came time that I wanted to form a band, I tried to take all those influences and combine them into something all over the map, but very cohesive. And I would be totally off mark if I didn't mention how much I love Nintendo music. Especially from Nintendo. The composers who were making those songs, like Koji Kondo and Hip Tanaka, were musical geniuses because the technology was very limited. And I really tried to use that in my writing because all they had were 4 tracks to work with. So they had a sound effects channel that they had to split between the game and percussion. They had a channel for the bass sounds, and then 2 channels, one for melody and one for harmony. So with those just 4 channels, and when I say channels, I mean that they can only play one note at a time in those channels. They created iconic soundtracks. You like listen to the Super Mario games, Metroid. They're endless. Yeah. Right. So if you can take like the simple technology that they had and you apply it to these things that people, and 35 years later, 36 years later, people still have these stuck in their heads. So I would have to say video game music was a very big influence too.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because it was an influence for me as well. And one of the first, I mean, all the games that you mentioned, all those classic Nintendo games for sure. Like I used to listen to that I would like listen to that music. Like I would, like sometimes you would get in the mail like I was like a Nintendo Power subscriber for a long time, and sometimes you would get like cassette tapes, like they would give you for free with like the music on it, or eventually CDs. And I remember being really into Donkey Kong Country had like the most amazing music. It wasn't Kondo. It was, I forget, they had two composers who were like legit really good composers, British guys, I think, who are still like making video game music today. Like they're still, I think, still highly sought after. Like you can make a good career in music as a video game composer for sure. Yeah.
The Mega Man 2 soundtrack is one of my favorite things to listen to.
Oh, that's a great
absolute
one.
Classic. Yeah, for sure.
Every song is fantastic.
We could do an episode just on music in video games. We really could. There's some great stuff on there. So I really want to talk about concerts, like our first concert that we've been to, experience about concerts, maybe concerts that we've been to together. I don't know if that's happened. I know Mike and I have been. I don't know if Steve and I, but we'll get there. But before we start, talk about the first album you purchased, if you can remember, and then talk about the first concert you've been to. So I'll kick it off because you guys have been talking a lot. I want some, airtime. But first album I ever bought was Red Hot Chili Peppers' Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magic. I forget how old I was, but it was cool, being pretty young, buying an album like that. Pretty sure there's a parental advisory, but the woman still sold it to me. I remember listening to it in my first house growing up, like obsessively. And I really like Red Hot Chili Peppers. They were my favorite band at the time. That's changed. But that's my first experience of buying a CD. It was a CD. What about you guys? First CD you purchased?
So I'll go because I know actually. Like I was talking about earlier, and Steve alluded to as well, like CDs were expensive. This was pre-internet days. Like music was hard to come by, especially as a kid, if you didn't have a job. So like I was saying, I recorded like almost all my music that I listened to for like a long time, recorded it off the radio. The first CD I remember actually buying with my own money it's kind of embarrassing, was the Godzilla 1998 soundtrack, which was a popular soundtrack. Puff Daddy had Come With Me, which used Led Zeppelin's Kashmir for the beat. It's actually a good song. And the Wallflowers did a pretty good cover of David Bowie's Heroes. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Do you remember that?
I bought that.
You guys are both Bowie fans. Have you heard that cover?
Yes.
It's a solid cover.
I haven't heard it in a long time though, and I think I actually heard their cover before I ever heard the original.
Same with me. Yeah.
Same here.
I remember it being good though.
Yeah.
Green
That
Day
was my first CD.
Green Day was on that CD as well.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of good musicians. What about you, Steve?
So I don't remember the first that I bought with my own money. I know that I did have Blood Sugar Sex Magic on cassette. So there were a few contenders. It was either Ninja Turtles coming out of their shells or coming out of our shells, which was a Broadway run that they did. Hammer, Please Don't Hurt 'Em by MC Hammer.
Nice.
Or Step by Step by New Kids on the Block. It's one of those.
Oh, I had that. I think I had that.
Those are all kind of around the same era. I don't know what came first, but those were my earliest cassettes.
Okay.
And probably first CD, it could have been Bruce Human Touch, because I don't know if I got that or if my dad had it and then I just kind of took it, or otherwise probably Green Day Dookie.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, I know my brother for sure had Dookie, and I used to borrow that all the time and listen to that. I mean, that's a classic.
Yeah,
but Steve,
it holds up.
Yeah,
it's great.
But Steve brought up a great point. Again, like kids watching, well, maybe not kids, but people watching this episode today may not have experienced what we experienced growing up. For them, they can easily grab it. Spotify, this, what a YouTube. Like so much has changed with music. Like it's just crazy that people don't have those experiences that we did, where you just save money, go buy a cassette or a CD, or burn it like Mike was saying, or Napster. I'm sure there's people watching who've never used Napster. Like that was a thing. And then in college, I remember like there was another version of Napster where you can download music that your roommates or other people in the dorm had as well. I don't know if you guys remember doing that, but that was a way I got a lot of music.
Oh, for sure. Me too.
Let's talk about concerts. Let's talk about our first concert if you remember, and then let's talk about some memorable concerts we've been to. You could go, Steve.
Yeah.
So the first live show I ever went to was I saw Frankie Valli play in Vegas when I was like 10 years old.
Oh wow!
And that, it was great. I love oldies. I love all that old music. But again, that was something years ago. So I remember it being very good. I remember there was a woman who was plastered and was flashing.
Is it flashing?
Right in front of the stage, and you just see this leg pop up like that.
That's hilarious.
Then I saw Bruce with my dad when I was in middle school, because I, again, grew up loving Bruce. And then the first like show that I really wanted to go to, first metal show, I got to see Pantera back in 2001, and I'm lucky because it was one of their last two tours.
That's awesome.
Was that the Bruce concert that you saw? Was he with the E Street Band at the time? Because they were not together in the early 90s.
It wasn't the early 90s. It was like 1998, 1999.
Oh, that was when they were doing the reunion tour, which was awesome.
Yeah, I don't remember if he was. I think he was with them. I honestly had very little memory of that show. I remember going and enjoying it. But
have you seen his Live in New York concert? I think HBO recorded it at MSG. It's you probably saw a version of that show if you saw that tour. But that's an awesome concert.
Yeah.
What are you, Mike?
I don't know what my first concert was. I didn't go to a ton of concerts when I was younger.
Me either.
So like but like as far as best concerts ever, I think Sid, you were there. The best concert I've ever seen was Springsteen's last show at Giant Stadium, the old Giant Stadium, and he played the Born in the USA album in its entirety, from first track to final track, and it was just, everyone loved it. That is an album that it's his best-selling album ever. A lot of, like, if you talk to like hardcore Springsteen fans, like, they won't regard it, most of them won't regard it as his best album or necessarily even one of his best albums. I think they're wrong. I think it is one of his best albums, probably his second best album. But I think almost every single one of the tracks on that album plays better live. And like certain tracks that like weren't even singles, like, are really fun live. Like Working on the Highway is a song I really like. Yeah, Darlington County. I mean there's so many.
About that. Sorry, I think what causes that album to fall out of favor with some hardcore fans is I think the production is very dated.
It is a little bit dated. It is for sure. Yeah,
it sounds like a product of the time when it was recorded. Whereas I think that the albums from the 70s, even though Darkness has a little bit of that 70s deadness to it, it doesn't sound like it was the product of a certain era, whereas it's the Born in the USA sounds very 80s.
And you mind if I go, Sid, finish my thought? Another concert, and this, you reminded me of this, Steve, when you were talking about earlier how you like got into other bands by by looking at like who like a particular band was influenced by. So one way I found a lot of bands is when I was like going through my huge like Springsteen phase in college. I wanted to like find bands who were influenced by Springsteen, like modern bands. So I got into these three bands, The Hold Steady, Gaslight Anthem, which is a Jersey band, and Arcade Fire. Arcade Fire is one of my favorite bands ever. And I don't know, like 8 years ago, maybe, like they're very experimental, and they put out like a very disco influenced album, and that was very different from their first few albums. And they threw at like the Barclays Center, like they didn't even call it a concert. It was like a costume dance party, like people dressed up in costumes, and I didn't do any of that. I just wanted to listen to the music. Sid and I went, and it's not one of my favorite albums that they've put out, but it plays really well live. It's just like fun, like danceable music. That was a great concert. Did you have a good time at that one,
Oh, I
Sid?
love it. That was such a fun time, such a different experience than your normal concert.
Yeah.
And then I think it's probably the only time I've been in the Barclays Center. So it's
okay.
cool going there, seeing that experience. Phenomenal band. Like during concerts, they have so many different musicians on stage.
It's like 15. They're huge. Yeah.
It reminds me of Bruce and the Viagra taking E Street, band.
Yep.
But definitely Mike and I have traveled a lot and gone to different concerts. So Bruce, I was not a huge fan growing up. I don't think my father listened to Bruce. He listened to a lot of other stuff, but because of you two, I became a big Bruce fan, and I've seen him a few times, and it's great to say that because of you guys, because of my friends, I was able to discover someone who is well regarded, one of the best of all time. And to see him closed out, was it closed out or was it open? It was closed out, right?
Giant Stadium. It was the last concert they ever did at Giant Stadium before he debuted this song Wrecking Ball, which is about knocking down Giant Stadium, not the Miley Cyrus song. Which is it's an okay song, but yeah, that was fun.
Was that the name of his next album, or it was the first track?
He put out an album called Wrecking Ball after that too, with the song on it. Yeah.
So for me, growing up, again, I listened to a lot of music, but I never went to a concert. Like Steve obviously went to concerts much earlier than I did. I guess not that I was scared, but I was a rock fan. I was like, I always heard about the mosh pit, so I was worried I'd go to a concert and get trampled. Like I didn't know what was going to happen. I knew there was a lot of drunks and stoners and stuff like that, so I just didn't go. But the first concert I went to was 2003, which is 11 years. I forget how old I guess I was like 10 years old or something at the time. No, older.
You would have been 18.
18. Yeah, my math sucks. But yeah, to say 18 was my first concert, that's maybe surprising. But the reason I went is because at that time, during homeroom of freshman year, one of my friends behind me gave me this album. He's like, this album just came out. I want you to listen to it. So I put it in my Walkman in homeroom, listened to it. It was Linkin Park, Hybrid Theory. They became my favorite band. So I was like, all right, I have to see them in concert. So 2003, I went to Summer Sanitarium in the Giant Stadium again. Yeah, Giant Stadium. Metallica was the headline. So I got to see Metallica for my first time. Limp Bizkit, another band I like. Deftones, Mudvayne, not Wayne, but Mudvayne. But yeah, it was a really cool experience. It was really hot. But to see some of my favorite bands, to see one of the greatest bands in Metallica, to see Linkin Park for the first time, that was such a wonderful experience. And after that, I got hooked. I was like, there's no better experience than going to concert. And then I started going to a lot of concerts because of Linkin Park. And probably one of my favorite experiences was with Steve Scalise. We were front row, Madison Square Garden. We saw Linkin Park. I met the band during the concert. I met the band. I got their autographs.
Oh, nice.
And then, I still have the autographs today. Steve and I recorded most of the concert. It's on YouTube, but it's a cool part where I'm recording and they could tell I'm recording. So they throw like a drumstick to try to fuck with me. And I miss it, and then it hits Steve, and it bounces off Steve, and Steve missed it too, and you can hear him like, "Oh no!" But it was a funny experience and great time.
Sid, what? I don't know if you know the answer, but what is a Chester autograph worth? That's got to be worth something these days.
Oh, I'm sure. Especially, it's a big print I have. It's a really cool poster, which I got it, but I'll never sell it. I'll probably frame it.
No, of course not.
I'll probably frame it at some point.
Yeah, you should put it up right behind you. Have it on the show.
That's actually a good idea.
Yeah.
But that was for their 1,000 Suns tour, which I think became on their best albums because it was very experimental, different from past albums. But what else? What other experiences have you guys had with concerts? Memorable, bad, good?
I was at Summer Sanitarium at Giant Stadium too.
Oh, really? For that one, or was it 2000?
2003.
Nice.
Fred Durst, I never liked Limp Bizkit. I can't say I never liked him. I still like some of their songs, but he kind of irritated me. But I mean, he's like the ultimate. He's like the marketing genius.
Yeah.
He whatever talent he has, he exploits to the fullest. He's not the greatest singer, not the greatest vocalist, but he put them them out there and like made them into something huge. You know, I'd say like he's what made that band who they were, and he's also kind of what brought them down too.
That's true.
I remember, yeah, like he went all the way to the opposite side of this.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's funny. They were both there.
Yeah.
That was good. How did Metallica do? I mean, because for me, that was my first time seeing them. Now, obviously, they didn't play like a. It was a, you know, it was a full set, but not a full set if it was just their tour. You know what I mean? So it was condensed. But how did they do?
I don't really remember it that well, but that was during a weird era for them. That was, you know, they had gone through their, whatever you want to call their load and reload phase, you know, like their alternative. Like things got a little weird for them in the late 90s, and then they made Saint Anger, which was you know, their return to making heavy music. But again, it was kind of like a misstep because the drum sounds like a garbage can. The songs are very long. There's out of tune vocals. I totally get where they were going for. It's a weird album for them to have made, being the fact like since they're Metallica. So I know they played some songs from that. It was like they were having an identity crisis as a band still at that point. So I remember thoroughly enjoying the show though. I remember, you know, being good.
And
what's going on with what's Metallica up to? Are they on a hiatus?
I don't really know. The past year, it's tough to say what.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I know James had gone back into rehab. You know,
that's what I heard. Yeah, that's too bad.
Resurfaced. Yeah.
Have you guys seen them together at a concert? I know you guys have been to, was the Big Four or whatever the concert was?
Well, you and I, Steve, saw Alice in Chains, right?
That was tremendous. That was one of the best shows.
Get out.
That was a really good concert. That's one of my favorites for sure.
They were great. They were great.
But what was the Big Four? The Big Three, Big Four. What was that concert?
That was at Yankee Stadium. I don't think Big. Mike.
No, you were with Dirk, right?
Yeah.
I thought you were there with Dirk.
No,
Mike.
no.
So who was there?
Dirk was at I think Dirk was with us at the Alice in Chains concert.
Yeah, and he came with me to see Metallica once too.
So what's the Big Four?
Isn't there a funny story about Dirk at one of these Metallica concerts? Can we tell it on the show?
Yes, of course.
He was a little overserved.
Right.
And I always wondered, you know, when you're walking to your seat and you're walking in the row and it feels really tight and you're afraid of tripping, and you always wonder what would happen if you fell. I got to see what happens if you trip and fall.
Oh no.
He fell?
He tripped. Yeah, he tripped. And it happened like slow motion. He tripped and then rolled into the next row.
Oh, you hate to see it.
And then he got up and he was fine. The funny part of that, so the Big Four, to answer your question, Elsid, is Anthrax, Megadeth, Slayer, and Metallica.
Oh wow.
Like the Big Four of thrash metal. They're the four biggest bands to come out of the mid to late 80s metal scene. The funny thing was we lost Dirk for a bit during Slayer's set. Then he came back and made Metallica set. And the next day he sent us the pictures he had taken, which were from the other side of the foul pole.
Yeah.
There was no seating there. We don't know how.
That's funny.
He saw it, just not with you guys. Yeah, that's great.
So another memorable concert, Steve. Any others that really stand out? Let's do this. Pick something that's not like Metallica. Pick something different. What's like something very good experience, but again, memorable?
I have a good answer for this. Do you mind if I go?
Go ahead.
Oh, you want to steal the spotlight? I see. And he just no sells that.
I just, I have it. I'm ready to go.
All right, go for it.
Let's do it. Sid, you and I used to go to the Preakness in Maryland, the horse race, and we used to go in the infield, and it's like a big party. Just people get overserved, like you said, and it's just pure debauchery. But they started putting on concerts in the infield, and it's just like we were just gonna go anyway. So it's just whoever they have, it's like that's who you listen to, and it's like we actually had saw some artists I would never buy a concert ticket to see them, but they put on a good concert, like Pitbull. Pitbull was really fun. Lord, I think we saw Lord, right?
Lord, we did.
Yeah, and Lord was good too. That was just a party. That was a fun time for sure.
No, it was. And sorry, my cat El Gato just woke up from his nap. Wants the spotlight. But Steve, go for it.
John.
Oh, that must have been great.
John 4 times, and
Wow.
he's probably the best show that you'll ever get to see. I mean, think about the number of hits he has. He's the guy who wrote the soundtrack to how many people's lives, and then like that really struck me last time I went to see him, because I'd seen him a few times, and I saw he was doing his farewell tour, and I remember asking Taylor, I was like, "What are you doing?" You know, like whatever the date was. It was like 8 months out. She's like, "I don't know." I was like, "Well, don't make any plans. We're going to see Elton John that day." Just phenomenal. But I remember just being struck by. I was looking down on him. It's like that's the guy who wrote these songs. Like you kind of forget. Like when
with Bernie Taupin.
Yeah, of course with Bernie.
Yeah.
But just in general, when you watch a band, sometimes it escapes you. Like these guys or these artists, whoever might have written these songs, and like they're responsible. Like, the moment just struck me. It's like the guy, like he's right there and he's playing.
Yeah.
He sounds phenomenal.
Did you ever see him with Billy Joel in any of those concerts they did?
No, I've never seen. I almost said I've never seen Billy Joel. I saw Billy Joel alone. I didn't see him with.
Okay.
And I actually saw the last show at Shea Stadium, which was incredible.
Oh wow.
Are you a Billy Joel fan? I don't know if you've ever talked about it.
Yes, I am. I didn't like him for a while because again, grew up listening to him and was just so tired of hearing him that I didn't want to hear any of his songs anymore. But then I grew up.
Yeah.
Guy's amazing. He has so many amazing songs. He's a fantastically talented writer and performer, and puts on a great show.
Yeah, I would like to see him. I don't know if he's still touring. I think he probably is.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I heard Michael Jackson's gonna have a comeback tour. I'd love to catch that.
But that would be a real thriller.
There.
But that's the beauty of music. Like you could really connect with your friends. You go see a concert that maybe you would never think of going, but your friends urge you to go, and it just has such a great experience. Now, generally, I've gone to the bands that I like, but it would be great to explore and go to different concerts. And I think a lot of times we stick to what we know, but really just the experience of going to a new band or someone that we've never seen before, like you can't take that experience away. Like it really does have a big impact on you. And hopefully now that COVID's mostly over, I really want to go catch some concerts.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
of course.
Definitely.
So, opening the floor, what artists would you like? Who would be on your dream list to see of artists who either have retired and you'll never get to see, or who have passed away and we didn't get a chance to see them? Who would?
Great question.
If you could see anybody.
Yeah, two that passed away that I would have loved to see. Joe Strummer, whether he was with his new band or that he had right before he passed away, or with the Clash, would have loved to see. And Chris Cornell, never got to see with any of his bands. I would have loved to see Chris or by himself.
Yeah,
I would go David Bowie, definitely. And also Depeche Mode. I'd love to see.
Well, they're not done.
They're not done. I know, but you said either they're dead or you haven't seen.
Okay, no, I meant retired, like somebody that you never get to see.
Oh, okay, I got you.
But that's a great choice. I did see Depeche Mode at the Garden some years back. They were a good show. So
nice.
I think we'll go around again, and if you want to go, I'll go with you.
Oh, for sure. I definitely want to see them.
Yeah.
But
I would go. Bowie for sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, Bowie's a good answer.
I know you've seen Bowie, but that's the thing. You never know. You never know who's going to, life happens, right?
Yeah.
And if someone's on tour and stuff, and you have the chance and the opportunity to see that band do it, you don't know if they're going to break up. You don't know if they're going to pass away. You don't know what life is going to do, but just go see it. Like, I'm sure I had opportunity to see Bowie, but I didn't. And again, there's no experience like a concert. Like, it's just phenomenal. And I just tell our viewers, just go take that chance. Go see bands that you may not even know who they are. Just go to your local concert, have a good time. Maybe you get exposed to a new band that you start enjoying.
What's your answer to that question, Steve?
So also Bowie, I never did see him.
Oh, really? I thought you did. Wow.
No, I mean, I was aware of David Bowie, growing up and liked some songs, but I didn't get into him until later in college. And I think he had already retired from touring. He retired fairly, I want to say like in the mid 2000s. But yeah, Bowie, Thin Lizzy.
Oh yeah.
And Typo Negative. It sucks because I didn't have an appreciation for Typo until Peter Steele died. And they were a Brooklyn band. They used to play at Lemoore, which is a world famous rock club that I lived walking distance away from. I used to go see bands. So I remember hearing that they were playing there. They just weren't my thing at the time. But yeah, I wish I would have gotten a chance to see them.
Yeah, good answers.
Another thing, we talked about concerts and stuff like that. Another thing I wanted to say, and common theme is like your friends expose you to music. Like Mike used the word, was it osmosis?
Yeah.
A lot of times, you get exposed to certain people, then eventually you become a fan. And Steve talked about this earlier, but one of my great experiences was doing our road trip from New York to Vegas and back. And we took turns listening, we took turns having a playlist. Mm-hmm. Talk about it, Steve. Talk about that experience, because that was definitely one of my top experiences in life. Even the road trip, the music, but yeah, fill us in.
Yeah, everything about it was just tied together. It was just a great experience. My friend was getting married in Vegas, and I was going to fly there, but I was like, no, you know what? I always wanted to drive cross country. Now's the time to do it. So I tried to recruit some people to come. Elton was the only one who was ready, willing, and able. So I was like, all right, great, let's go. So we would take 45 minutes each, because I have very strong tastes, very strong opinions in music. I like, if you have strong taste in music, it's kind of tied to the drive. So we're like, all right, we'll take 45 minutes each and we'll give each other a chance. So, had some playlists made. I think El said you would burn some CDs. And it would just take turns, playing an album, playing a bunch of songs. Like I didn't really have any appreciation for Linkin Park before that trip. And then I ended up, liking a lot of the stuff that you played. I remember, you like Typo Negative from that trip. John Coltrane, we listened to a bunch of albums. You like that stuff. It was, the music was all over the place.
It was.
It made for a better experience. And there really weren't that many repeat listens other than like, I really want to hear that album again. Let's listen to that. There's a lot of, like, a lot of different stuff.
And, I recommend that. If you have the opportunity to do a cross-country trip, viewers, you should definitely do it. Because, again, you're going through different cities. You have different food, different experiences. You listen to different music. Like, it's just such a meaningful trip. So many different things happen on that trip. And again, the music just tied it together. And then even now, like when I listen to certain songs from like Depeche Mode or some jazz songs, whatever, it just brings me back memories from that road trip.
Scars on Broadway.
Yeah,
we've done that. I've done that with you before. I wasn't on that road trip with you guys, but I've done that 45-minute thing with you. I really enjoy that. Like it makes the drive like so much more enjoyable. I think, was it when we went to Pittsburgh that we did it? Maybe.
Yep. Pittsburgh, Canada,
Montreal.
Yeah. And like just like certain bands, like I know Thin Lizzy, I grew an appreciation from that, and like Squeeze, bands like that. And one of you, I think, or maybe both of you, like System of a Down was a band I always liked, but some of their like deeper cuts I wasn't familiar with, and so some of that stuff I remember being exposed to. So yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah.
Just go ahead.
The infamous Wurtsville. Just thinking
of What, Steve?
I was just thinking of the two car incidents with when all of us were in the car. El Cid getting stung by the wasp.
Oh yeah.
Going from Cooperstown to Montreal.
Yeah.
And, when El Cid got a little slap happy and we passed by the Wurtsville sign, and I silenced him by like, say that. He's like,
But that wasp, like, you guys didn't believe me.
Yeah, until we saw the thing was like a helicopter in my backseat.
But like,
yeah, the Cooperstown trip, that was a good one.
Yeah, I miss road trips. Like, so much can happen during a road trip, good and bad.
It's a totally different experience from flying, because you get to see, they call so many places flyover country, but like, it's not right. There's so much to see. We live in such a large and varied country. Like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to go abroad and go and see other countries, but there's a lot to see here that you don't have to go abroad. If you get plunked down in the Southwest, and if you're from the Northeast, like we all are originally, it's like you landed on almost like another planet. Like, it doesn't look anything like what you're used to. And it's, there's a lot of beauty to be seen there.
Sid, you and I, speaking of beauty, my favorite road trip you and I did was from LA to San Francisco. We drove along the coastal highway. it's just such a scenic route. It's really something else.
Yeah, that was a great time. You know, again, something that probably I may have never done without with you. You suggested it. No, we were gonna go see Kind of Funny.
Yes,
they were doing a thing in San Francisco, and then I forget what it was. Maybe, but I'm pretty sure you suggested the road trip.
Yeah,
you were saying let's do it, and otherwise I would probably have never done it. But it was such an amazing time.
Yeah, we stopped at Big Sur.
Big Sur, yep.
Yeah,
and then. Any of our friends fly? Yeah, someone fly to visit us, right?
Joe and Scalise met us in San Francisco.
Why did they go there? They just want.
They were doing a vacation. They remember they came back. I left. I flew back from San Francisco to home, and then I think they went back with you to L.A. Didn't they spend a few days in L.A. with you?
I think so. Yeah. Oh yeah, they did. Yeah. But Steve, you have not made it out here since I've moved.
No, not since you moved. I've only been to Cali once, and it was a few years before you came out there.
But I haven't seen. I think this might be I've seen you at a wedding at some point, but I haven't seen you live like this in a long time. So it's good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. I'm glad I got to hang out with you guys for a bit.
It was a good time.
This was a good time. Again, Steve, thanks so much. Remind our viewers where they can find you.
It's my pleasure. You can find me on Instagram, Steve Cast String Theory. If you look at the credits of the show, I believe I'm in the intro. But yeah, if you want to hire me to come up with some music, I'm doing some voiceover work now too. So just contact me, give me a follow, watch some of my vids, and DM me if you want a collaboration or some work.
Do you do lessons anymore, Steve?
I do. I do give guitar lessons. So that's another thing. If you have interest in learning, I teach virtually over Skype, over Zoom, FaceTime, whatever you might have. So I teach guitar.
You're giving him so much free exposure, Mike.
So much free exposure, and I'm eternally grateful to the two of you.
I'm kidding. No, it's so cool that you're connected to our show now because you created our songs. Great job. This is a fun episode. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you for being a guest. Thank you for being the first guest to do our segment with us.
My pleasure. I enjoyed it. I'll come back anytime you want.
Perfect. That would be great.
Yeah, great discussion, guys. Brought up a lot of really good memories. We'll have to have you back at some point, Steve. I don't know what the topic will be, but I'm sure we'll have another great conversation.
And I look forward to talking to you offline.
All right. I think that's a wrap. Take care, guys.